Welcome to Vantage, Aditya. Today, we'll explore the rise and fall of one of aviation's grandest chapters, the Airbus A380. It wasn't just a plane. It was a dream come true, a dream of scale, ambition, and global unity. But it also became a lesson in when bigger isn't always better, when vision meets reality, and how leadership navigates the gap between them. It all began in the late 1990s. Airbus saw a challenge. The world's premier airports from Heathrow to JFK were running out of runway and terminal capacity. Airlines dreamed of more passengers, but infrastructure was maxed. So Airbus proposed a radical fix, not another long, skinny plane, but the largest passenger airliner ever built, the A380. It would carry over 500 passengers in a double-deck layout, the equivalent of two 747s in one fuselage. Imagine the audacity. While Boeing bet on point-to-point efficiency, Airbus bet on mega-hub connectivity. They envisioned packed flights city to city, with 550 to 800 passengers on board. The moment the A380's wings took shape and the first components were built, it captured global headlines. A statue of ambition was being assembled in Toulouse, France. But grand ambition doesn't guarantee smooth execution. Development took longer than planned, delays mounted. In 2006, when the first A380 finally flew, it was a moment of triumph, but also relief. Airlines celebrated and passengers marveled at the quiet cabin, luxurious suites, showers on board looking at you, Emirates, and that iconic double-deck cabin bustling with humanity. Initial feedback was electric. Emirates called it the flagship of aviation, and British Airways dubbed its A380 service a new benchmark. Cabin comfort, low cabin noise, 76 decibels compared to 85 powers in a 747, fuel efficiency per passenger surpassed previous long-haul jets by roughly 15 to 18%. In its early years, Airbus racked up more than 200 orders, believing the world would embrace high-capacity travel. But here's where reality began to shift. Around 2010, low-cost carriers and point-to-point routes surged. Passengers preferred direct journeys rather than transiting through mega-hubs like Dubai or Frankfurt. The A380, designed for hub-to-hub efficiency, didn't align with that new pattern. At the same time, operating costs were high. While the A380 consumed less fuel per passenger, the per-hour cost of running it, crew, landing fees, maintenance, was significantly higher. And operating a half-empty behemoth eroded its efficiency. Many airlines struggled to fill those seats consistently. In 2016, statistics started to sound alarms. Airbus reported that only around 60% of A380 seats were filled on average, compared to 80 to 90% on smaller wide-body jets. Amid rising competition and shifting demand, Airbus made a difficult leadership call. In February 2019, they announced the A380 production line would close by 2021. Emirates, with roughly 115 of the remaining orders, was the last airline continuing. The greater aviation market had moved on. So what leadership lessons does the A380 journey teach us? First, visionary leadership can birth extraordinary innovation. But success depends on timing, agility, and evolving context. Airbus bet on horizontal capacity. That bet worked beautifully for a moment. But markets changed. Leadership must constantly test assumptions. Second, scale alone is not a sustainable strategy. The A380 was a masterpiece of engineering. Amphitheater-sized cabins, state-of-the-art avionics, fuel efficiency for its mass. But when complexity, cost, and market preference misalign, scale becomes a burden. Third, exit courage is as vital as entry courage. Airbus saw the changing wind and responsibly ended production, something many leaders cannot do. They didn't chase pride. They made the hard call to disinvest. That takes clarity, humility, and commitment to long-term vision over static legacy. Fourth, the A380 remains iconic. Today it is remembered with nostalgia, a flying cathedral that redefined comfort. Some A380s still fly, most owned by Emirates, Singapore Airlines, Qantas. Even retired, each one is preserved in museum exhibits and remembered in blogs and documentaries as the largest passenger jet ever built. Legacy doesn't vanish with production. Finally, the human story behind it matters. Thousands of engineers, factory workers, pilots, cabin designers, airport planners, and passengers invested their aspirations into that project. That collective belief created something breathtaking. It reminds us leadership is not only about decisions, it's about belief, unity, and shared dreams. So what is the A380 if not a symbol? A symbol of what happens when we build big dreams and the discipline required to course correct when landscapes shift. It teaches us that greatness isn't merely about output, but about response. It reminds us that in business, in leadership, in life, bold vision must walk with practical awareness. In closing, if you find yourself building something monumental, whether a business, a career, or a mission, remember the A380. Dare to dream. Dare to build. But stay alert, adaptable, and deeply connected to reality. Because the tallest towers are built on both courage and wisdom. Subscribe to Vantage Aditya, because the future belongs not to followers, but to thinkers.